not private. It will be recorded and may be monitored. If you believe this should be a private call, please hang up and follow facility instructions to register this number as a private number. To accept this free call, press 1. To refuse this, thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Good morning, sir. How you feeling today?
Good morning. You realize it's, 13 days to go to the start of trial, and Brown has not issued his promised jury instructions. So how could counsel possibly prepare a trial if he doesn't know what the rules are?
How can you have a jury instruction based on an unconstitutional law?
Well, that's easy with the nigger on the bench. Come on.
Oh God.
I'm just saying that the lack of the strange instructions is just kind of content neutral, right? You know, if you don't have them, you can't prepare. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, you want the quick rundown on the Israeli nuclear weapons program?
So I want to put together a piece, and the premise of the piece is that there are plenty of theories out there about different historical events, and we have Tucker Carlson famously a few months ago said that Winston Churchill was the great villain of World War II. We have different stories and different theories about all sorts of historical events. And you have a theory about the JFK assassination, and I figure we write an article about it because this is the type of speech that the state of Connecticut is criminalizing in your case, speech that's not part of the approved curriculum. You would call it, I guess, the rabbinical curriculum, or the yeshiva curriculum. But the fact of the matter is, these stories they fly in media. You are a journalist and a blogger and someone who gives his commentary and factual reporting. And I think many will agree that you deserve the same protections as a Tucker Carlson or as somebody else that would put this theory or expose the theory to the masses. So, Paul, the floor is yours. Go ahead and let us know about your theory about JFK and what happened.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, it goes right in with, what do you call it? The one I like, the easy one, is Pearl Harbor, right? The surprise attack that wasn't a surprise. And, we teach all these kids in school it was a surprise attack. And, of course, we knew the carriers left home port in Japan on the 24th of November. We knew that there was no radio communication from them at all. We knew that they were not seen going south or anywhere else. And they came within, 180 miles north of Hawaii, launched 160 aircraft, and then they decimated a bunch of old battleships that were moved out there from San Diego. And against, I think it was Admiral Richardson, I think he was a Pac Fleet commander. He walked into FDR's office 3 times and said, "No, we're not moving the fleet out to Hawaii because you can't defend Hawaii." And he ended up resigning, and they put Kimmel in charge, and Kimmel did everything he was told. And we entered World War II just like the Jews wanted. So anyway, that's a little easier to explain. Okay, starting with a guy named Rickover. All right, he was supposedly the father of nuclear Navy and all that shit. He was a Jew. The Navy didn't like him. He was passed over for admiral, and when he was a captain, the Navy said, "Okay, go home. We don't need you anymore." Well, because he was a Jew and the Jews owned the Senate Armed Services Committee, the Armed Services Committee said, "No, wait, whoa, stop." No, and they forced the Navy to make him an admiral. Nobody wanted him. And then, he became the most senior admiral in the U.S. Navy, 4 stars, walked on water, And the guy was a terrible engineer, but he was a Jew. Well, the Jew connection was that in the Navy nuclear power program, we had this massive system that enriched uranium up to like 95, 96%. Okay,
And
like I
wait,
said,
just as a background, you know this because you were on nuclear submarines. You served in the Navy. You were a nuclear engineer, correct?
yeah, yeah, and the history of Rickover is no secret within the Navy, and he was not a liked individual, and you really wondered because in the Navy, why do you have a leader that nobody really likes? Well, it's because the Armed Services Committee kept him in power because it was a very powerful game. He was spending a lot of money. He owned all the senators in New York, Pennsylvania, Idaho, Virginia, anywhere they were building ships, New Jersey, and so. And they loved him because, well, let's face it, the senators were being controlled by the Jews. So anyway, the Israelis, and this goes back to probably the late 50s, is they wanted in on the nuclear weapons game. And, here they are starting a disliked country in the middle of the Muslim world. They felt that they had to have the bomb in order to, be credible and all that stuff. Well, they didn't have any technology. So what they did is they went around the world and pulled their strings. One of to set up, I guess if you Google it, I think it's the Negev Desert.
Yeah, no, I'll give a quick background. So, the background on this is that Kennedy took a firm stance against nuclear proliferation, pushing Israel for transparency at Dimona, which was the nuclear facility in the desert. And around that time, uranium went missing from the NUMEC facility in Apollo, Pennsylvania, and some suspect that Israel obtained it. Now, Kennedy's stance threatened.
They know.
Oh,
Kennedy,
you're gonna
people.
you listen. We're gonna listen. I'll let you say the word. Let me just put this intro out there. Kennedy's stance threatened Israel's nuclear ambitions, and wealthy pro-Israel backers had invested heavily in Israel's security, possibly seeing Kennedy's non-proliferation stance as a threat. When Kennedy was assassinated, LBJ came to power, and under him, the U.S. became less insistent on inspecting Dimona. The theory speculates that some group, whether the mafia, intelligence factions, or others, may have been used as a tool by parties who wanted Johnson's more favorable approach. But still, there's no credible evidence either way on it. So why don't you tell us your thoughts, Paul?
All right. So you know all about the $80 million that they paid to the French to tell them how to build that stuff. The French had a big clandestine operation. All these people were supposedly working in Argentina when they were actually in the desert in Israel. And they had collected like $40 million in private money to fund that. It was like $80 million. And they weren't going to give it up. Well, one of the things that you needed was, if you wanted to build a plutonium bomb, is you needed the uranium. And enriched uranium, you could actually make a bomb out of it. So anyway, uranium was the problem. So for some reason, Rickover granted permission for some Israeli people, which later turned out to be some Mossad people, to visit NUMEC in Apollo. Now, NUMEC was run by a guy. He was a PhD chemist graduate, John Hopkins, devout Zionist. He owned it, he ran it, and they came to visit him. And then the story of 600 pounds going missing comes up and everything. Well, later on, they obtained samples from the desert, and they confirmed it where it came from. And because with isotope analysis and everything, you can figure out where stuff comes from. So
the
we know
isotope
there was a
analysis
connection.
is like a fingerprint, so that they
Exactly.
can do with certainty.
Right.
Okay.
And there was the trail, from Rickover Jew to the Zionist Jew who owned NUMEC to the visit authorized by Rickover to 600 pounds going missing, and then I think that was around 63, maybe before. But anyway, by 67, the Israelis had 6 bombs. That's supposedly the rumor. Now, as far as Kennedy was dead set against it, he said, you're not going to have the bomb. It wasn't a matter of proliferation. It was a matter of you're not going to have it. And then, of course, when, his head exploded in Daley Plaza, LBJ comes in and nobody says a word. It just disappears. Now, the other thing you got to realize, LBJ's grandfather, they were from Texas. He was deeply involved with the Jews when Leo Frank was convicted of murdering Mary Fagan, which gave birth to the ADL, where they got the governor of Georgia to commute it to a life sentence instead of a death sentence. And then as soon as the governor of Georgia did that, he was escorted to a train by the state police, and he left the state and never returned for 10 years. So there is a definite connection between the Johnson family and the Jews, and that goes back to wherever they lived in Texas. There was Big Sam was LBJ's grandfather, Little Sam was his father, and there was a Jewish connection there, either in land development or something. And so, you kind of look at LBJ and that family connection to the Jews, and then they're like leaning on him. There was a hell of a connection there. And so LBJ, turned a blind eye so that, Jews could have their bomb. And that's the real reason Kennedy got taken out, because, Israel looked at the need for the bomb as a justification of its existence in a rather, religious aspect, that, they were entitled to the Holy Land and therefore they had to defend it this time, and they needed whatever weapons were available. And, that was that. So, but those pieces are very, very well known, and when you put them all together and line them up, it makes perfect sense on why everything about the Kennedy assassination is fuzzy, because Mossad, what do you call it, their motto is warfare by deception. So if Kennedy was going to stand in the way of Israel's goals, they're going to be taken out. And who were they taken out by? Oh, the mafia. Oh, this. Oh, that. Oh, it was Oswald. It was a lone gunman. Oh, it was this. Yeah, right. And look at whoever was involved in Daley Plaza. And, what was it? Jack Rubenstein, he took out the so-called assassin. Yeah, he was a Jew. Bush 1, he was involved. You go back to that assassination and you go back to all the cover stories, and, it's classic disinformation. Who's the best in the world at that? I mean, you can't even tell me who blew up the pipeline from Russia to Germany, the gas pipeline, right? Yeah, we don't even know that. That's a big mystery. Oh, yeah, sure, it's a mystery. And so anyway, there's a long, long Jewish connection, and nobody was going to stand in the way of Israel's reconstitution, basically, right? They got recognized in 48, and so by 55 or whatever date it was when they went up to New Mech, you can probably look that up, and you can kind of see the timeline. And they had their boy Rick over as a Jew. It was right in the middle of, the American nuclear submarine program. And, well, when you need uranium, that's a great place to get it. And,
you have 1 minute left.
I'll call you back.
Okay.
So anyway, they, they got it. They did it. They have their bombs. And, it was all with American help.
Okay. So, and I'll ask you some more. Do you know about the 70s when Golda Meir was about to drop the bomb on Cairo? And actually, the story is that she gave the order to drop the bomb. and Nixon called, and Nixon was the one who actually stopped it. And that they were in they had the aircraft carrier. They painted the Air Force planes black and sent them in and took them out in Cairo. Have you heard of that one?
No, not really.
Okay, that's one that I've heard. That's another part of the thing, because by that time Golda Meir they had the bomb, but the Israel's never come out and said they had the bomb.
Thank you for using Securus. Goodbye. To register this number as a private number, to accept this free call, press 1. To refuse this free call, press. Thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Yeah, one of the stories I was saying, Paul, is back in the Yom Kippur War on October 6, 1973. And the Egyptian and the Syrian armies, they launched a surprise attack against Israel on Yom Kippur, the High Holy Day. And the story is that, the history books say Nixon helped and everything else, and there was assistance. But what's been told to me by others is that Golda Meir was about to drop the bomb on Cairo at that point. She had already gotten the codes ready and everything else, and Nixon intervened and said, "No, we'll take care of it. We'll take care of the tanks. We'll take care of everything." And they immediately had the aircraft carriers stationed in the Mediterranean, and they had them painted black, all the planes, and they flew a mission, the unidentified planes, to take out the Syrian and Egyptian armies, as opposed to have a nuclear weapon dropped on Cairo.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense because, the Russians and the Americans, were the nuclear powers. And the people that live in that world, are very sensitive to anybody else who has the bomb, who thinks they're going to use it. So that makes perfect sense that she, was exploring that as an option, no question about it, because she has to defend Israel. I mean, this is a Moses thing, man, so using a nuke, she'd never seen one go off. Why not? Take out the whole city in one blow. That's my, Ark of the Covenant dropping on my enemies. And, I'm sure when Nixon was they told Nixon right away, and everybody went, no, we don't use those things. We need to stop. And they did whatever she wanted to say, don't use it, because they knew she had it. They knew she had them, and so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because it was a real something. It was out of character for Nixon. I think that his CIA director and even Kissinger, I think, were against intervention, against doing anything. But I think that in the face of a nuclear weapon being detonated, I think that
no, that's the holy grail. You don't do that. You don't do that. I mean, I've been in the nuclear weapons business, and you just do not fuck around. I mean, the probably even by the 70s, the concept is once the balloon goes up, it's over. So they couldn't risk that. They couldn't risk that Israel would drop it on Egypt, and maybe the Russians would say, "Hey, they're my friends," and then next thing you know, pound Israel into glass. No, you couldn't do that. And then it becomes unpredictable, and quite honestly, there was probably a concern that that's exactly what the Russians would do. It's like, who the fuck are you little assholes, to bomb my Egyptian friends? I kind of like walking like an Egyptian, so I'm going to come to their aid, and I'm going to just take out everything you've got, and then we won't have to worry about it. Then what happens? And the Americans go, "Oh, the Russians are bombing my buddies in Israel. We can't do that." And there, it's over. And if you won through that scenario, the answer is no. You stop. You stop before it begins, because once it starts, it's mind-boggling. I mean, even if you take out your enemy, say like the Russians, and there's nobody there to push the button, there's an automatic system in place to launch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how nasty it is. And the Russians called it the dead man's hand. And if they or somehow took out the Russians completely so that nobody was around to push a button to launch, the system would do it by itself. Yeah. And the British had a similar protocol too. The one I always remember is if BBC4 goes off the air, look out, because that means commanders have authority to, it's one of the elements to give commanders authority to launch. Like if everything goes quiet and there's nobody at home to call, and Britain got taken out, and the BBC4 isn't broadcasting, that's one of the things on the checklist to say go ahead and retaliate. We're out. So no, the stakes in that game are so high, and the people that are in it are running on such anxiety. I mean, the fear of somebody getting their hands on a nuke and parking it in Manhattan or something like that, it's massive, absolutely massive. And yeah, I mean, even on a good day, you just try moving a nuclear weapon, you see how many people you get to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, yeah, that scenario is true. But going back to the Kennedy. The only other piece I remember is, when you make plutonium bombs, you end up with a lot of really highly radioactive, nasty chemical waste. And I think the Israelis paid whatever, maybe it was Chad is the first country below the Sahara on the west coast of Africa. I can't remember. But anyway, they basically paid them a lot of money just to bury it in their corner of the Sahara. So that's where it's all sitting. And it's nasty, nasty shit. And so, anyway, that's about all I remember off the top of my head.
All right. So that's pretty good. That's enough to go off of. We can put a nice little presentation together. But do you think that your theory should be discounted more than any other theory?
No, I mean, the other theories all rely on cover stories. I mean, like, what do you want to take? The Lee Harvey Oswald? Oh, bullshit. I mean, there's so many holes in that story. It's not even funny. I mean, you look at where they moved him around to, and even the fact that they moved him into the book depository job just a short time before the assassination. He was working over at some other photography place or something. So I mean, that was just all a setup. All the bullshit stories of the the lone gunman, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, sorry, it's got too many holes in it. But you look at it and you go, well, at that time, who are you going to call to do an assassin's job like that, and who had the motivation? I mean, that was the other thing, to do that, to take out the president of the United States of America. What motivation do you need? You don't think any fucking mafia boss was going to make that call? No. So, but that was a great story because, remember, who was the biggest criminal organization in the United States? It was the Jewish mobs, Murder Incorporated, Purple Ink, and then they owned Hollywood, so what did they teach the Americans? That the Italians were the bad boys, and they make the Godfather movie and all this other shit. No, the big boys, the bad boys, were the Jews. And so when they decided that American president didn't need to be around because he was gonna defy the Holy Land from its great new Ark of the Covenant, nope, sorry, you're done. And and then how do you pull off a hit like that? You think you do it with some amateurs who work for an Italian mob? No, those guys were. And then, the other issue is you go back to that list of people that Rickover allowed to go to New Mex, and then the reasoning behind it was all bullshit. And then on that list, they know who they were. And I think at least one or two of them was known later to be Mossad. So you tell me a Mossad guy is going to Pennsylvania to learn about atomic power. Oh, and remember, all New Mex did, all they did was fabricate. They took the uranium and they fabricated it into fuel plates. They were part of the manufacturing for the cores for the submarine reactors. Well, that's fabrication. That has nothing to do with nuclear engineering. That has nothing to do with, understanding the use of uranium. That was purely a fabrication operation. So there was nobody there that was going to help the Israeli scientists understand use of atomic power. I mean, that's the biggest bullshit thing, And so anyway, beat that horse to death.
All right, cool. So I think we have a good little program on this. So I'm just more.
The other piece, I guess you'd say, is okay. If somebody thinks that 600 pounds goes missing, and then there's no real explanation other than, it was an accounting error, you can smell the rat. So,
yeah. Now.
Right.
Okay. And all right. So, and do you think that the we're gonna put the story out there, but do you think it's gonna face the same type of opposition that your journalism faces on the family court?
Well, I mean, do you really think that Benji wants it to come out that Mossad took out Kennedy? I mean, what do you think they're going to do? They run disinformation programs, and they have long tails on them. So, I mean, they're always out there looking for anything, and then they'll just go in and discredit it. And then you get the same issue of are all the Kennedy files declassified now, or are they still hiding some of them? So of course they're going to come out, and whoever puts that out is going to get hammered, and because you can't have the truth. I mean, what if you start teaching all the school kids that Pearl Harbor was just a setup, killed 2,500 Americans for just to get into the war? I mean, truth hurts. And then what? Who trusts their government after that? I mean, some of us don't trust the government to begin with, but they don't want that story coming out. The other thing on Pearl Harbor is, the carriers were not in port because we needed the carriers. The battleships, man, they were old shit. And so the carriers were conveniently absent when the bombing came. Oh, yeah. But like I said, all these stories, all the scripts have holes in them. You just have to look for the holes. And believe me, if 600 pounds of uranium went missing, and, for real, and it would be a major shitstorm. I mean, and it was like, oh, no, it didn't go missing. It was over here. Oh, it's over there. Oh, it was transshipped here. Oh, it was just an accounting error. Yeah. There was a lot of big people.
I would think that if 6 kilograms is missing, it would be a huge inquiry. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff is expensive. To enrich it up to 96%, that's a lot of money. And so, anyway, did you put out a piece on the appellate stay?
It's actually about to go out. As you called, I was putting the finishing touches. I sent a nice little email to your friends over at the Virginia State Police, the counsel and the media girl. I haven't received anything back, surprise, but it'll be out in the next few minutes. So.
Okay. Otherwise, just hanging out,
Yeah, that's it. Well, at a certain point, you can't effectively assist your counsel. So.
Well, my counsel's ineffective. He knows it. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. Todd knows there's a lot of stinky shit which you and I have already suspected.
You have 1 minute left.
With all this stuff, and Todd knows more, and he's not telling me. Okay, so I'm like, okay, so you think keeping it a secret some great legal strategy. But because I asked him, I said, when are you going to move to motion to dismiss, motion to suppress? And he's like, I think he's still trying to clean up a few loose ends with McCord and her girlfriend coming to.
Well, that's the problem. They didn't properly chain of custody, so that you become a silver platter. You become a huge issue with that. That's the case is dead on that.
It's a Brady issue. Why wasn't I'll call you back when this drops. Why wasn't it dropped? Why wasn't that put on the table in 24?
Yeah.
And then I asked Todd, I said, Todd, Jack knows that they violated the law of Virginia by taking that stuff out of it without a court order. It's still under the jurisdiction of the.
Thank you for using Securus. Goodbye.